Well, and I didn't always parent that way. I messed this up. I messed this up. So this is why I think I'm so passionate about speaking this into parents. My daughter, she's in college now. Yes, she's 19. But when she was 9 years old, she was exposed to pornography at school. And no phones were even present. It was a conversation because a kid had watched a pornographic video the night before and he just painted a very graphic picture in her mind about what he had seen. And so that was kind of my light bulb moment. I mean, I came home that night and I told my husband, I'm like, we're missing something. Like this whole not give her a phone until she's 30, like that's not going to keep her safe. And how do I have these conversations with an elementary age kid? Like talking to them about pornography. Like you don't want to say too much too fast. And so I kind of just set out on a journey to figure it out. That was 10 years ago. I went to my women's pastor. I told her what was going on, and she was like, well, start a group. And I was like, okay. It was 20 moms at first, and we were kind of just like, oh my gosh, these phones and this exposure, like, how do we talk to our kids? And I had no solutions or no like examples. I was just in it trying to figure it out. But that group grew from 20 to 200 in 3 semesters. Yeah, it was like God, and yes, and so, my church came to me and was like, "Form a nonprofit and take this to every church and school that will have you." And so that's what we did. We formed Next Talk. It's a nonprofit in Texas in 2016, and I've written a couple books since then. I mean, we have a podcast, but we've just been growing by leaps and bounds, and I feel like I've learned a lot on the journey of how I messed this up. So so let me give you an example. My kid, we had finally decided, technology is their world. We're gonna teach them how to use a phone, like we're gonna teach them how to drive a car. And my husband was like, we're gonna go 10 miles an hour first, and then we're gonna go 20 miles an hour, and then we're gonna turn out of the neighborhood, like we're gonna go in steps. So that's what we were doing with a phone. And I had no guide. I mean, I was reading all these parent books that had amazing wisdom, but nothing that said like how to parent Instagram. So I really felt like my kids were an experiment. I tell them now, you were a 10-year experiment. And thankfully some of it turned out good. But so my daughter had earned Instagram. And I say Instagram because I don't believe in they turn a certain age and then they get something. To me, they have to prove to me that they're ready for that. And so what that looks like is maybe they tell you, oh, I was in the bathroom today at school and something went down. Like my friend was saying the F word and she was going to hit this other girl. And they didn't have to tell you that. That's a moment right there where you can say, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, thank you for trusting me with that. Because you're telling me these things, it makes me know that you can handle more on digital and even in freedom, like going out on dates and stuff like that, like building trust. And I was missing all of those moments. I just didn't know to press into them. And so my daughter had earned Instagram, and it was her first social media platform, and she came around the corner and her eyes were just wide open. And I knew in that moment it was going to be like a foundational moment in our relationship, because I had been praying every day, Lord, help me be intentional. Don't let me miss the moments that I did before. Like that was my prayer every morning. And like help me create a new culture in our home where no topic is off limits. And she had her phone in her hand and she said, Mom, my friend went to a wedding and I clicked on, they did a post and it said hashtag wedding. And she said, I clicked that because I wanted to see pretty dresses. The dresses are so great. And she said, but Mom, this popped up. And it was, now mind you, this is my little 13-year-old. Porn, everywhere, porn. Naked, naked. And like old Mandy, what I would have done is said, listen, I tried to be cool Instamom, but I'm done. This is of the devil and we're done with this. Like I would have thrown the phone away. Like I really would have. New Mandy did absolutely none of that. And it was literally the Holy Spirit in all the prayers that I had been praying. But new Mandy looked at my daughter in the face and said, I'm so proud of you. Like you trusted me with this. And Satan wanted you to be curious and go down a spiral, and you didn't do it. And like, that's so mature of you. So because you told me you get a new app today, like, I don't know where it came from. I just said that, right? But now looking back all these years later, right? Like Had I responded like old Mandy, what kind of condition am I setting up in my home when something bad pops up on a phone? Just don't tell. So it creates this shame and this secrecy, and like I can't talk about it. Where new Mandy is creating an environment like I'm positively reinforcing you. You tell me, even though I don't like that pornography is on Instagram for your little eyes, like I'm not mad at you. You did nothing wrong. You did everything right. And that night too, I crawled in bed with her and I was telling her, man, I'm having trouble processing those images because I had reported it all to Instagram. And we had this beautiful conversation. Like we're just laying there in bed. I'm scratching her back, you know, she's a little middle schooler. And we talked about how pornography is bad for her brain, that she'll go to school and she'll see people differently because of the images she saw on that screen. And I just don't want that for her or her mind or her heart or her life. And that conversation, like it was a foundational, like through the years, of course, more detailed, more you know, I'm struggling with this, everybody's looking at it, mom, can you help me, like all those things. But you need to be the safe place, like when they want to look at it, when they're struggling to look at it, when they have looked at it, you need to be the go-to. You need to be the go-to. And we have to make sure that we're not responding like old Mandy, crazy mom, because that's how many of it's our gut. We think, oh, we're protecting them. I cannot believe this. But what we're doing is shutting down conversation with our kids. Well, okay, so it may be too that you've gone crazy parent mode and you've set a bad tone. So you may actually have to circle back and apologize. You may have to go back and say, hey, remember a month ago when you brought me that thing on your Xbox and I went nuts? Like, I need you to understand, I wasn't mad at you. I'm so proud of you for bringing it to me. I was mad because you shouldn't be having to play Xbox and some stranger contact you and ask you for that information or say that to you. Like, that's not okay that you live in that kind of world. And that's what makes me mad. So you have to explain that to your kids. But if you have, you know, your kids' season of when they talk and how they talk, it's going to change. And you need to know that. My whole thing is dig into where they are talking and try different things. Like, don't, okay, guys, after dinner, we're going to meet on the family sofa because there's a couple things I want to talk to you about. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, I used to do that. Do not do that. Your kids are like, red flag, get out of here. You know, like with my son, I have a son too. He's a 15-year-old in high school now. But he was a kindergartner when I started all this stuff. My daughter was in fourth grade and he was a kindergartner. And I like honed in on him, trying to get him to talk to me early. And when he was little, he we would go out to the driveway and shoot hoops, and that's when he would talk to me. He would just start opening up. Now it's different. He's in high school now. You know, when he gets home from school, he's tired. It's typically on the way home from school or in the morning on the way to school or something like that. And a lot of times, teenagers, they know they love to talk in the car because they know, okay, I'm getting ready to get out in 5 minutes. So if this goes south, I can escape really fast. So that's kind of a good tip too. But you do need to know your kid, like when they like to talk, how they like to talk, and it will change over time. And you kind of have to adjust to that. Humility. I think seeing the other person, that we're not perfect. You know, none of us are perfect and we're all kind of learning. And I've said that to my kids over and over through the years. Like, I'm not always going to get it right. I don't always have the right answers. And so, that humility, I think, of always saying there is only one who is all knowing and that we can go to. and maybe we seek that together, but when we're having a fight or whatever, or we're disagreeing, I'm disagreeing with my teenagers on something, I would be like, I'm flawed, I may get this wrong, but here's where I fall on this, or here's where I'm thinking about this. But I think that humility, bringing that into our relationships, I think there's just something there that makes it special and unique. And I think as God followers, like as Christ followers, we need to walk in humility like Jesus did. Well, I think one of my talking points when I talk to parents and I speak at churches is we have to look in the mirror, parents, because if there's a breakdown of communication in our home, it's because of us. Like, we're the leaders in our home. And I really challenge parents on that, because if there's doors slamming and attitude, they picked that up from us most likely, and we don't realize it that they're modeling us. I'll never forget the first time I saw a little attitude in my teenage daughter, and I literally just stopped in my tracks and thought, "Oh my gosh, she's a mini Mandy. What have I created?" Like, whoa. And I had a conversation with my husband that night. I'm like, and he just kind of smiled and he goes, "She does have an edge to her, like when I met you," but but I would talk to her about that. Like, I would talk to her about, that's how I used to be, and that's but is this okay to speak to someone like this? Even your mom, who you feel really comfortable with, and I'm your safe place. One day you'll get married. I don't want you treating your spouse that way. Yes, you can vent to your spouse, but you can't dump on them. You can't just scream at them all the time. There's a difference there between being a safe place and being like a punching bag. And so just modeling that um, throughout their life. And one of the things that I started to see as I did this, like walking in humility, and I would apologize. Like if I handled something wrong, if I, blew up or whatever, I would literally apologize to my kids, which went a long way to build conversation with them. But then I started seeing them do it. So I remember one day on the way to school, my high schooler, she was very stressed at school, lots of AP tests, just totally stressed out. And she snapped at me on the way to school, and I was going to say nothing because I thought, she's stressed. It's fine. We'll talk about this later. Dropped her off at school. She hops out. She goes up a few steps, and then she comes back down. She opens the door and she says, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm really stressed." And I was like, "I got you, sister. It's good." But I don't think that would have happened had she not seen me apologizing to her, right? Like, I just don't think that would have happened. But I was able to humble myself and look in the mirror and say, "Mandy, I have some faults here that I need to fix." And I'm going to dig into that. And that's what I did. What step one of the whole thing, when I was like, "Okay, Lord, you want me to build a culture of conversation in our home? How do I do this?" Um, in fourth grade, I remember one thing that I felt like the Holy Spirit was calling me to do. I literally just said to her, "How can I be a better mom to you? What can I do for you?" And her answer, quite frankly, I thought she was going to be like, "You're amazing and I love you." She did not say that. She did not say that. Fourth graders are honest. And she said, "Mom, you're not a good listener." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that? Can you give me an example?" And she was like, "Many times, like you'll be multitasking and you'll be, unloading the dishwasher, making dinner, checking your phone, and you'll be nodding when I'm telling you something. You'll say, 'Yes, yes, I hear you. I understand. I got it.' But," she said, "then you'll ask questions like, and I've just given you that information. So you're not really hearing me. You're like, 'Yes, yes,' but you're tuning out because you're so busy." Like, I had to apologize for that. And I had to say, "I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to tell me when I'm being a good listener and when I'm not being a good listener." And so it was setting up that in our home, like we're going to hold each other accountable here. Like it's kind of like the iron sharpens iron, but applying it to the family culture in your home, the parent child relationship. That's kind of what we've done. That's so good. Well, I've had to work through my own with my mom. I think we all have our own stuff to work through. I think one of the things that I would mention is, they're a person. They're a person and they're not perfect. And I think sometimes we look to our parents and it's just that I expect you to know better. I expect you to do better. I expect you to handle this better. Like, what are you doing? And they don't. And again, it is that, yes, they should know better, and I'm trying to work on that space. Students who are listening, I'm trying to get out there and talk to parents about looking in the mirror. But I think also just seeing them as a person, like they have a past, they have past traumas, they have past triggers that they're all trying to work through too. And sometimes we don't understand that until maybe we get older, and when we see, oh my gosh, they brought all of this into being a mother, and that's why they responded that way. It is. It is. And I'm not, hear me when I say I'm not making excuses. Like if your parents have abused you, if they have crossed, that is wrong. It is wrong. And I want to make sure I don't do that, but I think you're right. It's really hard to see their humanity. And I think I grew up in a generation where, like parents just didn't apologize to their kids. Parents didn't say, I screwed up. It was all about, like, I'm the parent, obey me. Like, this is what you have to do. Like, I know best because I'm older. That's how I grew up. And I didn't want my kid growing up that way. I wanted my kid to see, like, listen, yeah, I'm a little bit older. I've lived a little bit more life, maybe, but there's a lot of things that I don't know about your world that I want you to teach me, like Snapchat and Instagram, and tell me, how why you say that. What is that slang mean? And so I see it as like generations learning from each other. And I think that is the kind of culture, if we can cultivate that in our homes, man, it makes your kid feel so valued. And then I think the kid starts to see early on, like mom doesn't know everything. They're not an expert, and I think that's okay to let our guard down and let our kids see us that way. Well, don't make it awkward. Don't make it awkward. And- okay, so let me give you an example. Yes, yes. So here's the thing, with my daughter, fourth grade, came home. She asked this weird question, and I knew that something had happened. I dug in. She was exposed to pornography, all that stuff. We hadn't talked about where babies come from yet. We hadn't talked about sex because I'm thinking I've got time. She's in fourth grade. She's 9. I'm good. I didn't have time. I was way behind. And so that was kind of like our first conversation. And I was like, hey, do you know what sex is? Like, I just asked her a question. And listen, be doing something. Like, we were making dinner together, and it was just her and I. The boys were away at practice. It was a perfect opportunity. And she said, well, I think it can mean like girl or boy. I was like, yeah. And she said, or it could like something when you're married. You get to do something when you're married. And I was like, yay, she's got some sort of foundational, like, she's not shouting out friends with benefits or anything. So like I was like, yes, inside I was like, yes. Well, then I said, okay, do you have any questions about it? Like, please don't ever Google it because you could see videos that maybe your heart and mind aren't ready for yet. And I don't want that for you. Yeah, you have to be your kid's Google, and they're going to see porn. And that's what I see all the time. That's what I see all the time. Because they're afraid to ask their parents. Like, And that's what I say too. If you're say you're driving home from school, Heather, and your kid asks a highly sexualized question, like, and I get this all the time. Like somebody will say, um, parents will tell me, my kid jumped in the car and said, like, what is a blowjob or what is this? And they're dying, right? But they've learned not to go crazy parent mode. But I tell them, shift your thinking. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, why are they asking me this so early? They're not ready for this. Think to yourself, because they feel safe with me and they trusted me with that, I just saved my 9-year old from pornography. And so, and God did that with me. I was literally driving down the highway and that happened to me. And I literally was like, I'm ending it all. Like, this is crazy. Like, you get, as a mom, you get so mad because you feel like their innocence has been taken away. And so, but right there in that moment, God was like, Mandy, switch your thinking. Like, he trusts you and you saved him from pornography in this moment. So anyway, back to the sex story. I asked her and I said, "Do you have any questions? Don't Google it. I'm your source. I'll give you the information in kid appropriate terms, and I want to be that for you." Well, she got really red and embarrassed, and so I was like, "We can talk about something else. How did school go today?" Like, change the subject. Don't When you are wanting to have a conversation with your kid, if they're not into it, don't keep pressing on because you've got a to-do list. Don't do that. Walk away and be like, if you're ready to talk about it, I'm here. Couple weeks later, she came back to me. She's like, I have some more questions. Like, how does the sperm get into the egg? Like, she's asking me questions. Again, we're driving down the road when this happened. And I knew it was the time. And it's so weird because I said, well, the penis and the vagina, they go together like a puzzle piece. And I have no idea where that came from. And we have laughed and laughed as a family at how cheesy that is. Even to this day, my kids will be like, remember when you said the penis and the vagina go together like a puzzle piece? And I say that to you because parents, you may say something cheesy or weird. Make a joke out of it. Make a song out of it. We have little raps that we do. My son, he used to run around the house and he would be like, we don't want to be scarred for life, scarred for life. Everybody scarred for life. Like, we just make it fun. And kids love that. They love to be able to say the words. I remember when we hadn't talked about sex or anything, and I went to my husband. I was like, I just want our kids to be able to say penis and vagina, and nobody spit out their chicken at the dinner table. Can we get there? And he was like, we're gonna try. We're gonna try. And I mean, now it's just like standard operating procedure. Like, we talk, and now my kid, I've been in this 10 years and my kid went off to college and I didn't know how this transition was going to work, and I don't hear from her sometimes. She's off living her best life. She's doing amazing things. But then I'll get a call late at night. Mom, I got to talk to you about this. This is happening. She knows the big things that she needs to process with me or whatever. And I just think it's really special. I've learned a lot. I don't think we would ever be where we are today, me and my daughter, if we hadn't put some of these core things in practice and I hadn't changed my parenting, like how I respond to things. So I look at this at two different, there's the preventative part where you do when they're younger, and then there's the conversations that they have in crisis mode when they're actually suicidal, right? And you need to immediately get them help and whatever. I kind of want to focus more on, because the suicide crisis is more medical. They need to be pouring into your kid and you need to get the help. The prevention piece over here, I think when they're little, and I think of it as a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is crisis mode, 10 is the crisis mode. What next talk and what I'm trying to do is over here at 1, 2, and 3, prevent the 10 from happening through conversation. Like, that's our whole mission of our organization. And so, a couple key things that I've told my kids. One of the things is, I'm going to always love you the same no matter what you do. I'm expecting you to make mistakes because you're a kid and kids are impulsive. And I'm going to love you the same no matter what. And I model that for them throughout their life. When they bring something to me, my first words are, thank you for telling me I love you the same. I don't love you any differently. But here's why this isn't good for you, and we need to talk through this. So one of the things, and that is just something, because in my line of work, I see a lot of kids doing stupid mistakes, and they just can't face their people. And so it causes them to get into this desperate space of, I can't look my mom in the eye, or I can't look my best friend in the eye, or whatever. And so that preventative piece there is, I love you the same. The other thing is, you're not trapped. Like, something's going on at your school, you're getting bullied, we've tried all the things, we can't there's other schools. Like, I'm going to walk you through this. I think that is a super easy thing, and we're not overexposing our kids to anything, but they just don't feel trapped. And I've always told them, whatever you're feeling, like if there's pressure, if there's a bully, if there's, and we're trying to get help, and and we're not getting it fixed, there's other options. You don't have to just go to that school and that's it. That's so I don't want my kids to think like I can't walk in there and see my fellow athletes or my fellow students because of what I've done, and think there's no other option. The other thing is, you know, I love to share stories with my kids about people who have been completely redeemed. So, like the porn star who's now the pastor, or what, and just tell them, like, God can redeem anything, anything. And so, even when you feel like there's no coming back from this, I can't do that, like, I, God could never use me, or my life is over because I did this, or that is a lie from Satan. Like, God takes broken people and uses them in miraculous ways. And so instilling, I think, that value in your kids throughout their years, and those kinds of talking points, like, you're not overexposing your kids to big a suicidal topic or whatever, but you're instilling some key principles in, when you feel like there's no way out. Here's I'm here for you. Like, I'm going to help you process whatever you're going through, kind of thing. No, I would just say to the parents out there, avoid crazy parent mode and look in the mirror. Like, and that goes to the be humble point. Be humble. But parents, like, we're the leaders. Like, step up and lead your kids. And if you messed up, take the first step and apologize. These kids need you no matter what their age. They still need you as mom and dad. Okay, so this is I talk about the new problem we face, and basically it dives into, we all say technology is changing our kids, but what does that mean? I dive into some really difficult statistics there. So we talk about the problem, and then I talk about a solution that I've found that works. That solution is open communication, and it comes straight from Deuteronomy 6, 6, and 7. The Lord led me to it. But then in that book, I give 10 practical things you can do right now to implement open communication in your home. And those are just real practical. Avoid crazy parent mode is number one, and I share stories about how to do that. But there's lots of other very good talking points in there, like, adopt a no secrets policy that will protect your kids from abuse, going to the neighbor's house, googling pornography, all sorts of things. So there's just very practical ways that you can start cultivating this kind of healthy dialogue in your home. Speak kindness, and you have to model this for your kids, because it's a war. I open up Twitter and it's a war zone. It is a war zone of the loudest voice. And I am praying that those of us who are really trying really hard to model Jesus and be kind and speak love and say truth in a kind way, that we will make headway here, and that people will start to see the screaming and the yelling at each other. It's just not productive. It's not a humility type of personality that we want to bring to the table. It's not like Jesus. Thank you very much. We're going to keep on keeping on.